What shows up after 60 often didn't begin at 60. It has been building quietly, year after year, long before anything felt different. The body adapts, compensates, and keeps things looking stable on the surface. And then, at a certain point, those small changes begin to matter in ways that are harder to ignore. I'm Dr. Warren Hung. On this channel, I focus on helping you understand how your body changes with age, especially the changes that don't announce themselves clearly but still affect your risk for things like stroke, heart strain, and kidney problems. If you want clear, practical explanations like this, consider subscribing. That way, you'll keep getting guidance that helps you stay ahead of problems rather than reacting to them later. Now, here's the part that catches many people off guard. You can feel generally well. You can be taking your medication. You can be trying to eat reasonably, and still, certain changes in your body continue to move forward. Not because you're doing something wrong, but because the body itself is changing. And after 60, those changes begin to carry more weight. One of the most important things to understand is this. Aging is not just about getting older. It's about how systems inside the body gradually lose flexibility, precision, and reserve. Let me explain what that means in simple terms. When you're younger, your body has a kind of buffer. If something goes slightly off, your blood pressure rises for a moment, your hydration drops a bit, your sleep is poor, your body corrects it quickly and quietly. You don't notice it, because the system absorbs the stress and restores balance. But over time, that buffer becomes smaller. The corrections still happen, but they are slower, less precise, and sometimes incomplete. This is where many of the important changes after 60 begin to show themselves. And this is also where a common misunderstanding starts. A lot of people assume that if they feel fine, then everything important must still be working the same way it always has. But feeling fine is not always a reliable signal anymore. In fact, some of the most important changes in the body at this stage happen without clear symptoms at all. Blood vessels can become stiffer without pain. Kidney function can decline without obvious warning signs. Blood pressure can fluctuate in ways that are not immediately noticeable. And because these changes are gradual, they often feel normal. That's what makes them easy to miss. Another pattern I see often is this. Someone says, "My numbers were okay last time, so I think I'm fine." And that can feel reassuring. But a single snapshot doesn't always reflect how the system is behaving over time. Especially after 60, what matters is not just whether something is in the normal range once, but how stable and resilient the system is day to day. This is where the idea of hidden progression becomes important. Changes are happening in the background. They are small at first, but they are cumulative. Think of it like this. If a system loses just a little bit of efficiency each year, you won't notice it immediately. But after 10, 15, 20 years, that small loss adds up. And eventually, it reaches a point where it starts to affect outcomes. That's why certain risks like stroke, heart attack, or kidney strain become more closely tied to these underlying changes after 60. Not because something suddenly broke, but because the margin for error has narrowed. And this leads to a very important shift in how you need to think about your health. Earlier in life, you can often rely on how you feel. After 60, you have to pay more attention to how your systems are functioning, even when you feel okay. That doesn't mean something is wrong, but it does mean the signals are quieter. And the consequences of missing those signals can be more significant. Now, here's the key point I want you to keep in mind as we move forward. There are certain changes that happen in the body after 60, whether you actively notice them or not. They are part of normal aging physiology. But, and this is important, they do not affect everyone in the same way. Their impact depends on how early you recognize them, how well you understand them, and how you respond to them in daily life. Because while you cannot stop these changes from occurring entirely, you can absolutely influence how much they affect your health, your independence, and your long-term outcomes. And once you understand what is actually happening inside the body, a lot of things that seemed confusing start to make sense. You begin to see why certain numbers matter more than they used to, why certain habits have a bigger effect than before, and why some risks increase even when nothing feels dramatically different. We're going to go through 5 of the most important changes that occur after 60. Not in a general way, but in a way that connects what is happening, why it matters, and what you can do about it. Because the goal here is not just awareness. It's protection. Protection against problems that build quietly. Protection against assumptions that no longer hold true. And protection against the kind of damage that becomes harder to reverse if it's caught too late. But before you can protect against these changes, you need to see them clearly for what they are. The first change is something that almost everyone experiences after 60, even if they have never been told about it directly. Number 1, your blood vessels gradually become stiffer. When you're younger, your arteries are flexible. Each time your heart pumps, those vessels expand slightly to absorb the pressure, then relax again. That flexibility helps keep blood flow smooth and reduces strain on the heart. But over time, the structure of the vessel walls changes. Proteins like elastin, which give arteries their stretch, begin to break down. At the same time, collagen, which is stiffer, becomes more dominant. Calcium can also deposit in the vessel walls. The result is simple but important. The vessels don't expand as easily anymore. So, when the heart pushes blood forward, the pressure has fewer places to go. And that leads to a gradual rise in systolic blood pressure, the top number. This is why you often see blood pressure patterns shift with age, even in people who didn't have issues earlier in life. Large population studies, including data from the Framingham Heart Study, have shown that systolic blood pressure tends to rise steadily with age, largely due to this loss of arterial flexibility. Now, here's where it becomes more serious. Stiffer vessels don't just affect the numbers you see on a monitor. They change how force is transmitted through the body. Instead of being absorbed smoothly, pressure waves travel more directly into delicate areas like the brain and the kidneys. That increases the risk of small vessel damage, microbleeds in the brain, reduced kidney filtration over time. And this often happens without clear symptoms in the early stages. You don't feel your arteries stiffening. You don't feel those pressure waves. But the effect is real, and it accumulates. This is where a common misunderstanding shows up. People often think, if my blood pressure isn't extremely high, I'm okay. But after 60, the pattern matters just as much as the number. You can have readings that look acceptable in a clinic, but still experience fluctuations throughout the day that place stress on the system. Which leads to the second change. Number 2, blood pressure regulation becomes less stable. This is not just about higher readings. It's about variability. Your body uses several systems to regulate blood pressure moment to moment. One of the most important is the baroreflex. That's a feedback system that senses pressure in your arteries and makes quick adjustments, speeding up or slowing down the heart, tightening or relaxing vessels. When you're younger, this system is very responsive. If you stand up quickly, your body compensates almost instantly to keep blood flowing to the brain. But with age, that responsiveness declines. The signals are slower. The corrections are less precise. So instead of smooth control, you get more fluctuation. Blood pressure may rise more easily under stress. It may drop more when you stand up. It may vary more between morning and evening. And this variability is not harmless. Research from large cohort analyses, including data from the American Heart Association, has shown that higher blood pressure variability is associated with increased risk of stroke and cardiovascular events, even when average blood pressure is not severely elevated. Now, this is where many people miss the signal. They check their blood pressure occasionally. They see a reasonable number, and they feel reassured. But they are only seeing one moment in time, not the full pattern. I remember a patient in his early 70s who told me his blood pressure was always fine. He checked it once every few weeks at a pharmacy machine. The readings were usually acceptable, so he assumed everything was stable. But when we monitored his blood pressure over 24 hours, a very different pattern appeared. His pressure spiked in the early morning. It dropped significantly when he stood up, and it fluctuated widely during the day. What this shows is how the system can look controlled on the surface while behaving very differently underneath. And this matters because these fluctuations place repeated stress on blood vessels, the heart, and the brain. Over time, that stress contributes to higher stroke risk, greater strain on the heart muscle, faster progression of vascular damage. Another important point is that these two changes, stiffer arteries and unstable regulation, often interact. Stiff vessels amplify pressure swings. Reduced regulation makes those swings harder to control. So, instead of a stable system, you get one that is both more rigid and less responsive. That combination is what makes blood pressure more complex after 60. And it's why management at this stage is not just about lowering a number. It's about stabilizing a system. Now, here's something important to correct. Some people assume that if they are already on blood pressure medication, the problem is fully handled. But medication is only part of the picture. It can lower average pressure, but it does not completely restore vessel flexibility. And it does not fully normalize regulation. That's why factors like hydration, salt balance, sleep, timing of medication, and daily patterns still matter more than many people realize. Especially now, because the system no longer compensates the way it used to. So small imbalances can have larger effects. And recognizing that early is one of the most important ways to reduce long-term risk. But circulation is only one part of the story, and another system is changing quietly at the same time in a way that affects almost everything else. The third change is one that almost never announces itself clearly. Number 3, your kidney filtration gradually declines. Your kidneys act as a continuous filtration system. They remove waste products from the blood. They balance fluids. They regulate electrolytes like sodium and potassium. And they help control blood pressure through hormone signaling. When this system is working well, it is remarkably quiet. You don't feel it. You don't notice it. But over time, the filtering units inside the kidneys called nephrons begin to decline in number and efficiency. This is a normal part of aging physiology. Large observational data, including findings from cohorts like the National Health and Nutrition Examination Survey, show that estimated kidney filtration rate, often measured as eGFR, tends to decrease with age, even in otherwise healthy adults. Now, this decline is usually gradual, and in many cases it stays within a range that is considered acceptable for age. But here's where the misunderstanding happens. People often think, if my kidneys were a problem, I would feel it. But early kidney decline does not produce clear symptoms. There's no pain, no obvious warning sign, no sudden change that forces your attention. And because of that, it's easy to assume everything is still working the same way it always has. What's actually happening is more subtle. The system is still working, but it has less capacity, less margin, less flexibility, less ability to handle stress. And this becomes especially important when the body is challenged. For example, dehydration, illness, infection, certain medications, sudden changes in blood pressure. All of these place extra demand on the kidneys. And after 60, the system is less able to absorb that demand without consequence. That's when small issues can turn into larger problems more quickly. Now, let me connect this to something very practical. When kidney filtration slows down, substances stay in the body longer. That includes waste products, but it also includes medications. And this leads directly to the fourth change. Number 4, your body becomes more sensitive to medications. This is not just about taking too much. It's about how the same dose behaves differently in a body that processes it more slowly. When you take a medication, your body needs to do two main things: process it and eliminate it. The liver handles much of the processing. The kidneys play a major role in elimination. If elimination slows down, the medication can accumulate, even if you are taking the exact same dose you've taken for years. And this is where many people run into trouble without realizing it. They assume, I've always taken this. It's always been fine. But the body that handled that medication 10 or 15 years ago is not the same body now. Clearance is slower. Sensitivity is higher. Interactions are more likely. Research and prescribing guidance, including recommendations from organizations like the American Geriatric Society, consistently highlight that older adults have a higher risk of medication-related side effects, even at standard doses. Now, this doesn't mean medications are unsafe, but it does mean they need to be managed differently. Here are some common patterns that show up. A medication that once felt neutral now causes dizziness. A sleep aid lingers into the next day. A blood pressure medication leads to lightheadedness when standing. A pain reliever affects kidney function more than expected. These are not random reactions. They are signals that the system handling the medication has changed. And here's another layer that often gets overlooked. As people age, they are more likely to be on multiple medications at the same time. Each one may be appropriate on its own, but together they can interact in ways that increase risk. This is called polypharmacy, and it becomes more important to monitor after 60 because the margin for error is smaller, the system is less resilient, and recovery from side effects is slower. Now, there's a specific type of false reassurance that shows up here. Someone says, "My doctor prescribed this, so it must be fine," and the prescription itself may be appropriate. But what matters just as much is ongoing adjustment. Because your body is not static, it changes, and medication effects change with it. This is why regular review becomes essential. Not just asking, am I on the right medication? But also, Is this still the right dose for me now? Is my body still handling this the same way? And importantly, are these medications interacting in ways that increase my risk? Because one of the most common preventable issues after 60 is not the disease itself, it's the unintended effects of treatment. And when kidney function and medication sensitivity intersect, the impact can be significant. Fluid balance can shift. Electrolytes can become unstable. Blood pressure can fluctuate more than expected. And all of this can happen gradually, quietly, without an obvious starting point. That's why awareness here is so important. Not to create fear, but to create control. Because once you understand that your system is processing things differently, you can begin to make better decisions about hydration, medication timing, monitoring symptoms, and asking the right questions during medical visits. And that alone can prevent a surprising number of complications. But even if circulation and kidney function are managed carefully, there is one more change that explains why the body becomes less forgiving overall. The fifth change is less visible than the others, but it ties everything together. Number 5, your body's overall reserve becomes smaller. When doctors talk about physiological reserve, they are describing your body's ability to handle stress and recover from it. Stress can mean many things: an infection, a poor night of sleep, a medication change, a period of dehydration, even emotional strain. When you are younger, your body has extra capacity. If something pushes the system off balance, it can compensate, stabilize, and return to normal without much difficulty. You recover quickly, often without thinking about it. But over time, that extra capacity decreases. Not because one organ fails completely, but because multiple systems lose a small amount of efficiency at the same time. Your heart may not respond as quickly. Your blood vessels are less flexible. Your kidneys filter more slowly. Your nervous system adjusts less precisely. Each change on its own may seem minor, but together, they reduce your margin for recovery. This is what people often experience as things take longer to bounce back. A mild illness feels heavier than it used to. A missed meal affects your energy more. A small imbalance lingers instead of correcting quickly. And this is not just about comfort. It has real clinical implications. Because when reserve is lower, the same stress produces a larger effect. A drop in blood pressure can lead to dizziness or falls. A mild infection can disrupt multiple systems at once. A medication change can trigger unexpected side effects. Research in aging physiology, including data from large cohorts such as UK Biobank, consistently shows that reduced physiological reserve is associated with higher risk of hospitalization, slower recovery, and increased vulnerability to complications. Now, here is where many people misinterpret what they are experiencing. They assume, I'm just getting older. And while age is part of the picture, that explanation is incomplete. What's really happening is that the body's ability to absorb stress has changed. And once you see it that way, something important becomes clear. You may not be able to stop these changes from happening, but you can reduce how much stress the system has to handle. That is where control comes back in. Let's bring all 5 changes together in a simple, practical way, because knowing them is useful. But using them is what protects you. Here is a straightforward daily framework you can keep in mind. First, think about stability, not just numbers. For blood pressure, the goal is not only to have a good reading, it is to avoid large swings. That means checking at consistent times, being aware of how you feel when standing up, and noticing patterns rather than isolated numbers. Second, support your circulation gently but consistently. Regular movement matters more than intensity here. Walking, light activity, and avoiding long periods of sitting help maintain blood flow and reduce stiffness in the system. It doesn't need to be extreme to be effective. It needs to be regular. Third, protect your kidneys without overcomplicating it. Stay reasonably hydrated. Avoid unnecessary overuse of medications that can strain the kidneys, such as certain pain relievers. And make sure kidney function is being monitored during routine checkups, especially if you are on multiple medications. Fourth, treat medications as something that evolves with you, not something that stays fixed forever. If you notice new symptoms, dizziness, fatigue, confusion, swelling, don't assume they are just part of aging. They may be signals that your current doses or combinations need adjustment. And small adjustments can make a large difference. Fifth, reduce unnecessary stress on the system wherever you can. This does not mean eliminating stress completely. That is not realistic. But it does mean paying attention to sleep quality, hydration, meal regularity, illness recovery, and how your body responds to changes. Because with lower reserve, consistency becomes more valuable. Now, let me make one final point very clear. None of these changes mean that decline is inevitable in the way many people fear. They mean that the rules have changed. Earlier in life, the body protects you automatically. After 60, you have to work with the body more deliberately. You have to notice patterns earlier, adjust sooner, and think in terms of stability, not just absence of symptoms. That shift alone can change outcomes significantly. Because most of the serious problems people worry about, stroke, heart complications, kidney issues, do not come out of nowhere. They develop over time, and they are often influenced by the exact changes we've just discussed. If you understand those changes, you are no longer reacting blindly. You are anticipating, and that is a much stronger position to be in. If this made you think about something you've noticed, maybe a pattern, a symptom, or a change that didn't make sense before, you can share that in the comments. It often helps to see how others are experiencing similar things. And if you want more clear, practical guidance like this, you can subscribe so you don't miss future explanations. The goal here is simple: to help you see what's happening early enough to do something about it. Because once you can see the pattern, you can start to change the outcome.